Thank you guys so much for being here for these important conversations. We are here today for a few really important conversations. As you know, we are coming to you live from the National Museum of African American Music, yes. And this is a place that shares the contributions of Black musicians that have played a crucial role in the American soundtrack, right? That is just us. We created the soundtrack. This is a story that parallels the story of art itself and is the business behind it. So today we're going to explore that business and how the industry works and how Black artists and industry professionals can profit. I said how they can profit off of their own work. Oh, y'all are going to love this panel. I'm telling you, everyone is what y'all need. I promise you. Okay, so let me introduce the dopest moderator that we have. We have Tiffany Hardin. Let me tell you about this sister. Our moderator for this panel is the founder of Guild Creative Group. Tiffany is an award-winning marketer. Let me shout out some of the, and talent manager. Let me say that again. Tiffany is an award-winning marketer and talent manager. If you need some brands so you know that she's legit, let me just say this. Netflix, Airbnb, Target, HBO, and more. I feel like I need to say no more. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring to the stage Tiffany Hardin.
Thank you. You guys, we're going to have a really good time tonight. I appreciate the wonderful introduction, and also I'm really happy to be here with you all. I love this topic we're going to discuss today. It's my favorite topic in the world because we're talking about the music business, and we're talking about being in the music business and growing in the music business, and also how we can create more revenue in the music business. And with that, we have a few entrepreneurs that's going to join us on stage. Please give a warm welcome to Anshia, booking agent, philanthropist of Bryceland, Michael MAULDIN, co-founder of Black Music Association, and Brandon PANKEY, vice president of Business Development and Operations at Live Nation Urban. Woo! I know, we need to, I know it's after lunch, y'all. Listen. Y'all done got the itis, living Huskies done messed y'all up. All that cheese, all that dairy, you know. Y'all should get the vegan versions. But today we're going to just have a little fun today. We're going to talk about what it means to be in the music business. I know we're streaming live, which is really exciting. So shout out to those that are live with us right now. And this is going to be real conversational. Oh, hey, y'all.
Hello.
Brayden, you're so far from me.
I know.
Yeah, I can put my feet up like this and swing it.
We're trying to get like you guys real comfortable, laid out. So what we're going to do today, just so you guys know, is we're going to have a conversation that is going to go from, you know, a little bit of the origin stories of these guys. So I'm gonna throw some curveballs at you. But ultimately, what we want you guys to glean from this conversation is what does the new music business look like? What are the revenue opportunities? And how can we grow as professionals in that? So the first question that I wanna hear from this audience, because they come from very diverse experiences. You guys are all entrepreneurs. You've been in the business a lot of years, and I ain't gonna call nobody out. But if you can remember and think back, what was your first job? What was your first job in the music business? So tell us a little bit about that, and then tell us a little bit about what is the one lesson that you've learned that you still keep with you today? Who was that person that said, maybe you had to get slapped in the face to learn the lesson, maybe you learned it subtly, maybe it was by observation, watching what somebody else did that you're like, I ain't gonna do that no more, or ever. But what is that first job and what was that lesson? Brandon, I'm gonna start with you.
Of course you do. I would say the first job that I had was with, I had an internship at MTV. And it was, you know, I'll show my age a bit, but it was satellite radio. It was just starting. And so I learned Pro Tools and production and nothing that I actually wanted to do in the industry. But I'm going to give you a twist. My real origin story is this woman right here, Miss Deanna Williams. And it was in a class with another panelist that was here earlier today, Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. I had one of his classes, his Tupac Shakur class, and he brought in his friend. And I went up to her and said, look, I love this industry. I want to be in it. You know, if there are any opportunities for an internship. And she graciously, after a few emails, hooked me up with a management company in Philly, Mama's Boys Music Group. And, from there, it just, grew. So the lesson that I would give anybody that really want to be in this industry, relationships. It's about maintaining relationships. It's about being respectful and really, really, when I say relationships, not just can you help me? It's really like, really building true friendships. And I have a friendship, with a woman that did not have to take a chance on me at all. She didn't know me. I had 4 eyes. Who cares? And she really, I'm thankful for Miss Deanna. And it's really about relationships.
That's really beautiful. All right, Miss Faye.
I guess I'm next. Hi, everybody. My name is Anchia Crooms. Like Brandon, I started off as an intern, and I started interning at TV One first, and then Hidden Beach Records. And I met a young woman, lovely lady named Monica Young, who's doing amazing things in the industry right now. And she really just showed us the way, like you said, it goes back to relationships and how you treat people to be on time. But my first real job was working for Central Park Summer Stage, and I started as a production assistant. And that really taught me everything about the stage management, writers, settlement sheets, and things of that nature. And so I would say I took so much from that job that I said, you know what, I then can do it myself. So one thing I will say to yourself, show up for yourself. That's the most important thing you can do starting out in this business, because there's going to be a lot of no's. But I continue day after day showing up for myself. So
That's beautiful. I love that. Mr. Maud.
Yes. Well, when you talk about time, I've been doing this for a long time, actually close to 45 years, believe it or not. And, I've been blessed. And my very first, other than just being a musician coming up in school, my very first gig was as a roadie for a couple of groups out of Atlanta called Brick and another group called Mother's Finest. And it started out as being a musician that just kind of fell into carrying equipment around and doing stuff that became my job without me really knowing. And it was something my focus was being a musician, trying to do what those guys was doing, not quite as good as they were, but them needing my help because I owned a van. And in that van, I was able to, carry their equipment and other people's stuff. And before you know it, their music took off, their record took off, and things started happening. And all of a sudden, I went from driving my own van with their equipment to running up and down the road in a 22-foot truck, driving and being a roadie for that. And that was a long time ago. I would have to say, though, my biggest lesson that I've learned in my career as a production manager, tour manager, I actually handled production for Luther Vandross.
That's awesome.
And
I'm excited.
To be honest with you, though, that's the only job I've ever had that I've gotten fired from. And the reason that I remember it so well is because it really, technically, I never viewed it as my fault. But the fault was that I didn't properly direct everybody around me as to what the protocol was. Right. So with that being said, after the show, after the concert, I was told that, okay, you and Mr. Vandross, y'all cool. He didn't tell me himself. His manager, of course, told me. And I just couldn't believe it. I wanted to defend it and all. But the idea of excellence, particularly for us as black folks typically doing what we do, black excellence is everything. And it's a certain level that you need to be at in order to, with yourself, kind of what you said, but be comfortable with yourself and a level that you need to be at to compete. Because most of the time we're questioned or we're doubted or there's not enough belief or feeling that we can do what we need to do. So that was, I say, just believing in yourself, but making sure that you do it better than anybody else, whether they think you do or not. And by the way, 3 weeks afterwards, I got hired back with Luther, but I got hired back as his tour manager.
You got promoted.
So I got promoted because he realized what I was doing finally was probably a little more and gave me that opportunity to keep growing. So
love it. Listen, that's all y'all need to know. All right. That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And the reason why I started with that question in particular was because I wanted everyone to know the type of talent that we're working with on this stage. These are entrepreneurs, they're executives, and they come from beginnings that are rooted that are, I can speak up.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
That's what happened. You know, I just need to like woo woo woo. But that's rooted in excellence. That's rooted in, you know, and for myself included, you know, my first real gig as an intern was with a guy named John Monopoly, who I credit for my career because he was the one that, you know, when I got to my senior year, and I mean, I was doing everything for that man child. But when I got to my senior year, I was like, man, I just want to graduate with a job.
Yeah.
And I thought I had to either go to New York or Atlanta, and I was like, New York's gonna swallow me whole. Atlanta was what I was thinking, and that's not what happened. He introduced me to Mona Scott Young at Violator, and we met a couple times. I became her assistant, sight unseen, and I moved to New York and started my career. And child, let me tell you something. I can say it because
we all got stories now. We all got stories.
It's just the part about rigor and excellence. An example of that is I was 21 years old, and I'll tell you, $25K a year in New York City, 2007. Talking about showing age. As my dad would like to say, not a pot to piss in. And working from before she got in the office till when she decided to leave, which could be whenever she decided to leave. But what she did for me was she helped me understand how to think. And that is one of the biggest lessons anyone can ever give you if they take the time to give you that. And one of the methods that she used was when I would get an email, I would have to draft the email, send it to her. She would edit it, send it back to me, ask me why I made all those grammatical errors because didn't I go to college? And then I would send it out. But what she was teaching me was how to think, how to speak, how to engage in the music business with external people so that you're always protecting the brand. Yes. And I remember one of my first interviews with her, she said, listen, you have this job, but you're loyal to me. So she made it very clear what was going on in terms of mentorship. Yeah. And those are those lessons, that rigor, that excellence is what, you know, we all have learned from these mentors in these situations that have really, you know, gave us the opportunity to jump, you know, to leapfrog in our careers. So I was going to ask this question about leadership, but I really want to get into the money. Okay, so the music business has changed a lot since even 10 years ago. These days, you do not have to go into a fancy studio. You don't have to do, you don't have to have a whole lot of equipment. There's software, and there's also, you know, more mediums for which you can get paid from. I'm curious, because you guys are all in different places in the music business, what have you seen, and what, with the talent that you've worked with, what have you seen to be sort of like the revenue generator for this new music business? Anshia?
For my clients, I would say touring. I'm more on the music side of the agency. So for me, it's just like when I realized that I remember being 13 years old, and there was this movie called Show Me the Money. And I was trying to figure out, oh, he's an agent. Like, he can sell, you know, I'm bona fide, a salesperson. But for me, a lot of our revenue comes from being on the road. So when the pandemic started, it was like, well, what do we do next? We had to really start thinking outside of the box. And then we started to teach ourselves how to use Final Cut and edit and do virtual programming and things of that nature. But for us, the most part that I make my revenue on is being on the road. And when I have talented artists, I know that I can sell them to any venue. Then also there's the flip side. I talent buy for a lot of different festivals and music venues. That's another means of income that I've been able to generate within my my business, is because there's always someone looking for talent. And I do believe that I have an eye for talent, and I love live performers. So if you have a great performer who has a great fan base, you figure out the strategy in the market and you say, okay, I can place them in this city, I can place them in this city, and then there's a venue, there's a festival, there's a buyer that will take a shot on them. But it all has to come back to how you make that money and make sense for the venue and for the buyer. But for me, I make my revenue based off of touring for the most part.
I love that. And can you just tell us some of those artists that you work with, those talented humans?
Sure. I'm Mumu Fresh's booking agent, Eric Robeson, and I talent buy internationally for and book PJ Morton internationally.
Shout out to PJ
And Kevin
Morton.
Ross.
Wave. Love that. Do any of you want to pick up that question?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I want to look at it from a multi-pronged approach, right?
Okay.
Hey, Tiffany.
Good. That's
Hey,
good.
Tiffany.
I love it.
Hit all the angles, please.
It's fine, because you were in Love and Hip Hop in the background on a couple of shows. Now you want to act like this. So there's a couple of things, right? Agreed, 1,000%. Touring before COVID, 80 to 90% of an artist's revenue came from touring. Like, that was the bread and butter for any artist. When COVID happened, what are we going to do as an artist? What are we going to do? So one of my biggest things is, and this is a fact, in North America, our greatest export is our creative economy, particularly for black creatives, right? We're the most creative people on the planet. I don't care what anybody says. And so when we had to really pivot and we created virtual experiences, like I produce a ton of festivals around the world, and we had to go with virtual shows. So we had to just really figure out how to take these artists and make you tune in as a consumer and make you really change how you looked at live streams, how you looked at your artists performing. On top of that, in general, artists are brands now. You know, you look at Drake co-owns a venue with Live Nation. He's not performing at the venue, he co-owns it. And so now artists are diving into different fields, you know, whether it's restaurants, whether it's, you know, clothing lines. It's always been done, but now they're getting more into investments. You look at what Nas is doing, you know, what Jay-Z has with Marcy Ventures, and artists that you may not even hear about. It's really about how do you diversify that pie, because the music industry, we all know, you know, not every artist is built for it. You know, someone once told me, you know, an artist has 4 to 5 years on average to be in the industry, you know, to have a sustaining career outside of superstars, or outside of those that, again, have built touring careers. So how do you diversify the pie? And that's a big piece of this. Like, what does it mean to be an artist now? It's not just getting on stage and performing or being in the studio and recording. It's how do I make money in other facets as well.
Work for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Brandon. That's good.
Yeah, I think, I mean, first of all, you guys are totally on in what you're saying. And I believe that, I mean, you know, coming from the era that I come from, you know, touring was always, in most cases, that was the only way they made money. The record labels, people wasn't really getting paid royalties, which I know Sony just did something recently in the last 48 hours that just is going to change that, particularly folks on the other side of 2000, which I know a bunch of them is going to be jumping for joy this morning. But the thing that I've realized is that where we and again, I keep going to community, so just bear with me, but where we fail, even with the artists that I have a chance to speak to, and I'm sure like when I see Deanna over there or different colleagues that I've known, we all understand that the biggest thing that's missing today to me is community. And most artists, they drive themselves. They, you know, it's great. You know, Drake's doing his thing, Jay's doing his thing. But the idea of how you tie it together to bring back community, and I think the pros and cons, as bad as COVID was for most of us, whether we lost family, friends, jobs lost, the beauty of it was it made us all focus a little more to the inside of who we are. Absolutely. And our families and our community, and the ability to connect those dots, to garner the possibilities of tomorrow, or be able to drive the youth who pays very little attention to what came before them.
Absolutely.
That's the window that the good Lord gave us, believe it or not, in this space, to be able to try to put that together and bring us back to a level of solid ground, a foundational level, because we get splintered. And I think that, you know, all the corporations and everybody is good. And as you said, black music now is 70% of the streamed music around the world. Yep. So the realities of that is that there's a lot of money in the music, but then when you go back, we've always led. Going back to that era.
I mean, when you go outside these doors of the museum, you walk through the museum and you see the path of how we've always led. So much so that they had to go and make recordings, these little ragtag recordings, to capture what was being done naturally from our communities.
They just didn't have the data for that. You know what I mean? Data. Now there's data. Like, you know what I mean? You can't deny it. They just didn't have data back then. Hold on, because you're doing an amazing job. I just had a question for Michael. I don't want to take over as a faux moderator. But I'm thinking about what you just said, and you were talking about community. Do you think when you started, it was more unified in the black music industry?
1,000%.
Do you think part of that is, because I'm thinking about now, like it's so much easier for me as a manager to, get to a sponsor, right? And I don't have to work with you. Like, and I don't want to use crabs in a barrel, right? I don't want to use certain sort of terminology, but it's like, it just feels like, I'm going to get mine and, you hope for the best. Right. And I just think it's because things are so splintered in general when you're talking about how technology makes things easier to grasp, but we forget each other in that process.
Well, here's a question
and it's frustrating. I'm sorry.
Because I'm the moderator.
Take it back.
Me and you.
Y'all both have
we just gonna sit right here and hang out. I'm gonna watch. I got A and B connection,
Okay. But no, when you were talking about community, and because I know you, Brandon, work and have your company, Artist Presents Experiences, I was just thinking to myself, there's so many like artist curated festivals, and it seems like it's like, is this competitive to curate a festival, put all this other talent on it? Are we going back to that? Is this a trend, or is it more of like I'm a flex and put on a festival?
That's a great question. That's a great question, Brandon.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Because here's the issue, right? And I shouldn't even be saying this working for Live Nation. The problem is when you look at a lot of these artist curated festivals, they're still backed by white companies, right? Okay. So we're not actually getting that, more of the pie that we could get if we work together. Like, imagine if Drake and Kendrick and J. Cole said, you know what, we're going to start our own sort of thing and build that out. It would be massive, but that's across multiple.
Self-funded. So like
self-funding, but that takes a lot of money to build a festival. It takes.
So for an example, because I know, Brandon is one of the minds behind Roots Picnic, and you participated with Broccoli City and all of, just like a roundabout figure, like for a 2-3 day festival, a whole bunch of talent, just a number, so we know.
Multiple 3 million.
2-3 million, right? Mm-hmm. And probably a little bit more than that, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Is there something like, what would the stakes? What would have to be true for the talent, like the J. Cole's, the this, the who's, to say, I'm going to do that? Is that was something in the water? Was Pharrell's joint? Was that all Pharrell?
Live Nation.
I know you. That's why I'm going to ask about Live Nation.
Well, let me say. Let me speak on it, because I just, I'm up here, so let me just say this.
It's literally your job to speak.
No, because the idea of and I keep saying community, but it's broader than that. It is community, but it's radio. It's everything that goes along with that. There was a point in time where radio, before there was FM, it was AM, but then it went to satellite, the whole nine. We were really talking to the community. Right. And we also was localizing things. Now, I had a partnership with Live Nation, as you know, from 2000. I won't even talk about it. But the truth of the matter is, now it's nationwide. You can be right here in Nashville and won't know what's going on across the street.
Absolutely.
At the auditorium over there, but you'll know more about what's going on in New York City. And the problem with that happening is that there's no community. So without that, it makes it very difficult. So the artists they are different artists, but then the way it used to be, when I started with tours, most of all the top artists was making the same amount of money. You almost knew it. Within $5,000 of each other, everybody was pretty much, if you were on that tour, unless you were the opening act, you were pretty much in the same lane because you were getting paid. Now you can demand, because of just the streams and the numbers and everything is more accessible. That's the beauty of it. People can really see what their value is, right? Yeah. So you can actually do the multiples and figure out that, whoa, wait a minute, I'm filling up all your seats. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So instead of you paying me a fee, pay me against my guarantee. Pay me a guarantee against the royalty, which in most cases for where you come
we're
from.
asking questions now.
You're talking about language, and this goes back to one of the questions I skipped because we weren't there yet, but you're going to take us there. Education. What you just said. How does the artist know to ask that question, or does that become the people around them? We're talking about the ecosystem. How do we get to grow leaders to ask the questions? Because I love this. I work also with wellness leaders, wellness influencers, and talent. And I told y'all earlier, you know, I came up from like the Violator, Mona Scott Young, Chris Lighty, you know. So when people ask me to book my talent and they think they're going to get some hippy dippy, like, oh, the sun, moon, stars, if the chakras are aligned, and they have a number that's not right, and they're like, well, why don't you just do it? You should just do it and be grateful. And I, you know, hit them over the head a little bit because they're getting that Violator energy. It does something for my spirit. I get so excited about that because we're talking about knowing value and how we can have people and the language and the education so that people understand. Like, I know what I'm talking about. I know what this industry is. But, you know, people will try and pull the wool over your eyes. People will try you.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's so amazing, and even when we talk about, and I don't want to keep going back to community, but a lot of it is also the handoff. I mean, we all, and I saw David out here, and I see Deanna, we all know a lot of it is the handoff from one generation to the next generation. And most of the time, we do not bridge that generation gap, as they say, so that there's no handoff. In most of our circles, particularly the artists today, all of them are not as blessed to have you or G or whomever working along with them. Most of the time, these young artists are bringing in their cousins and their uncles and their aunts and their moms and their dads to do a job that is really, first of all, this is a music business. It's not, you know, everybody sell records, you go out on tour and you jump on stage and whatever. It's a business. And if you look at that, that drives it. However, usually today, the artists are driving the conversation. So everybody, as they say, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z, then that person, to maintain that job or hold on to that artist, runs out and makes it happen for that artist. So now there's a disconnect because there's no way that you're going to get Lil Wayne talking over here to Kanye to talk to, you know, there's no way because now everybody's trying to look out. Whereas if there's a circle, and I'll just say this to kind of close off on it. One of the best examples in the world right now is the NBA. The NBA has an organization called Think 450, which is a for-profit organization tied around, and it's centered from, actually, speaking of Philadelphia and all, a gentleman by the name of Payne Brown runs 450. It's centered around all the players. Yeah, you got LeBron, and you got this, and you got that, but it's geared up to make sure they are all part of it. So if there's opportunities associated with the NBA, which then goes to the union, then everybody technically has some level of partnership in it. Now, people talk about it. Drake talks about it a little bit, you know, and I just mentioned it because I heard him talking about it recently, but several people talk about it, but no one's really doing it because we allow ourselves to be fragmented and get in these pockets, and then it is about, oh, I can get this much money. Well, if I get that much money, that's mine. How do I share that? And no one's talking about how you bring us together to share. So,
are there incentives to share?
Very much so, because I think it creates longevity, and I think it also connects to the next generation. And it allows you to know that there's not a, you know, there won't be the gaps. Because right now we're based off of a hit music and how music's heard. And, you know, and it's, as Beyonce said a few weeks ago, you know, now music's coming out so fast, so quick, putting it up. All of a sudden, you know, you're hot for this record and rolls through, you know, you're a hot girl for the summer and you cool and you move on. But then all of a sudden, the winter comes.
Right.
And then the fall next year and the whole nine, and now you're back trying to get in the grind because you're chasing hit songs when before, where we had come from, it was about if the OJs was rocking this year, 9 times out of 10 the OJs rocking next year. If, you know, and it was just more of a community, so everybody was working. And then corporate America recognized, wow, black music is making a lot of money. So now whether it's the buyouts or whether it's, you know, just bringing folks together, we've kind of been fighting that. And that's, again, this could be a way bigger conversation, probably more than this stage. But it's just, if we don't come together as a community, even now, you know, if you look at Live Nation and AEG Live, we talk about the live, there's only, they're the two. And damn near every concert in the world right now that has any value of filling up an arena, even though these are municipal buildings, are ran and guided, but naturally so, because as I was told on a panel one time by some folks who was colleagues but worked for Live Nation, but they wasn't black guys, but I'm just keeping it real. It's now all about the money.
Yeah.
Who can pay the most money? Who's got the biggest agency? Who's got the biggest this? Who's got the biggest that? And that becomes the carrot. So you dangle that in front of anybody. You can be a baby or you can be a grown man or a grown woman. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to go toward that. Versus us sitting over here saying, hey, we're going to come together. And I do believe, and I'll be quiet after this, but I do believe there's opportunities when you look at the LeBrons and the Magic Johnsons and all these folks who love music, who lives their lives by black music. If there was a formula set aside that would allow them to get involved and the artists themselves would say, hey, we'll listen, I think then you would get Rapinoe and everyone else to pay attention to that. And that's real talk.
Thank you for that. Can I just get some snaps of some stuff? Because that was some great gems dropped for here. And I really appreciate that. I know we're running in on time, and I heard a lot. I heard a lot in what you just mentioned, and I think what's interesting about being in the music business, and like you were talking about the next generation, you know, there's a question I started with, was your first job, and that question was meant to, you know, bring us back to this point, which. I'm going to close this out in a little bit, but I want us to think about, you know, what is the hope for the next generation of leaders to own and know? I have a sense for what Michael's going to say, but so I'm not going to start with you. But I want us to talk about that a bit, because what we've learned is that, you know, this is a creative economy, you know, from the touring business to literally. You know, we don't say new media anymore, but what I mean is like the social, the digital content creators, the ability to have branded and sponsorship deals. You know, there are people that are in corporate seats paying the money to artists and trying to take care of their own when they're in those seats, which is amazing. But when you think about the leaders that need to, you know, make those decisions and create those formulas and to try and figure out, you know, how can we, you know, continue to drive revenue, continue to take advantage of our creativity, but really, you know, make sure we're in the driver's seat around that. What are the characteristics? What are the traits of the leadership that needs to be there? Because it's not always going to be the artists. You know, it's the people around them as well.
I'll let you take that first. No, I'm
You
trying
haven't spoken. I want you to
thought
speak. That's a good one.
Cool. What are the traits? I mean,
Like, what do we need to see in that leadership?
I mean, we need to see people that really want to help us. You know, I think all of us get to the next place by somebody that pull us behind them. You know, my thing is like, I want to be able to give back to young girls because somebody made a way for me. You know, I didn't have someone, I mean, there are women agents out there, but I didn't know too many growing up. So I had to kind of create a space for me. While I'm creating this space, I want to be a positive role model to women coming behind me, knowing that, oh, she knows how to have a conversation with somebody from Live Nation, from AEG. She knows how to put a tour rider together. But you need that positive male or female to be in that space to say, you know what, I am here. Because I think a lot of times that happens in the music industry, we are afraid to talk to people because people are so intimidating. You know, if stop making yourself less intimidating, also make yourself available. We know that everybody is busy. They have crazy schedules, husbands, wives, children, things of that nature. But there are people sitting in this room today that just simply want to have a conversation. So make yourself available to people and be mindful of people's time at the same time. So it's just being positive and looking for those people that really want to give back, because that's why, you know, once you allow your purpose to meet your passion, you can do anything you want to do. And so you want to surround yourself with people like that. So that's kind of what I'm still continuing to look for, because I don't know everything. And I'm still a young woman in this industry, still learning. But I'm creating a space. And as I create that space for myself, hopefully somebody will come behind me and say, you know what, she did it, so I can do it too. So I'm going to continue to make myself available and be a leader to young women coming behind me.
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brandon?
So we're talking about black leadership.
But
Okay.
whatever you think is relevant.
Because for me, we have to make sure that we're like for my company, for example, making sure that we have equity in things and not just, you know, getting a salary. Because when you have ownership, you have more power. That's just
That too, yes.
It just is what it is. So that's the piece of it, and making sure, like as a leader, making sure that someone up I'm teaching, actually legitimately teaching them. Michael talked about it, like teaching them and helping them understand. And also, like, here's a piece of this so that you can start your own business or hopefully be in a position to fund them if they have a really dope idea. It shouldn't take, it shouldn't take a man dying on TV for us to be re-engaged with being black and being a leader. And I just felt like last year, you know, when that happened, everybody, you know, you see the corporations, they have like this $100 million number that, you know, for some reason everybody was given $100 million, which I still don't know what they've done with that money to help reinvest in our communities. But I saw leaders start to, you know, want to do more and re-engage around black. And that it shouldn't take that. So as a leader, we just have to always be mindful of who we are and who we're helping to build up and bring up.
I love that. That is an incredible answer, and I'm really happy that you're coming from. I think all of us really come from the teaching spirit when it comes to the next generation, what they need to learn, because there are some unwritten rules in this game. Yeah. And what do you think, Michael?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with the aspects of the leadership, but I also know that you have to be a great follower in order to be a great leader. Yeah. And part of, to me, what that is just. You know, being educated on what it is. Not educated meaning you went to college but educated on what it is that you're trying to lead in, because that's everything. When you step out on the street, you're competing with someone else, whether you know it or not. And you shouldn't be in a position where you're competing with yourself. And sometimes the thing that I notice with a lot of the younger folks who are brilliant and smarter than me and know what is the inability to be patient.
Talk about it.
And real talk. I mean, we just, you know, it didn't happen overnight. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm, again, dating myself, of course, but, you know, when I go back, and again, I'm not using me, but I can tell my picture better than anybody else's, but you allow yourself. I mean, the one thing that you said, which was very on point, we're the most creative community group of folks in the entire world. We will come up with what's next. If you change the game, we will continue to evolve and change the game. The game has been changing forever.
Yes.
And now, you know, technology, some of us that are older, we're not quite as brilliant on the, you know, going online and knowing where things are. But the truth of the matter is, the way you do business, the way you go from one step to the next has never changed. It's a matter of having enough patience and enough education to understand, let me see what it takes for me to be that leader. Because if you think back to the era of when I came in, there was some young lady outside had an NAACP shirt on. And I realized that if you think back to that era where it was really popping and prominent and all those leaders were young. Yeah. Every one of them. Yeah. I mean, we forget when we talk about some of our celebrities. I mean, everybody knows Otis Redding. Otis Redding died at 26 years old, just turned 26 years old. You know, Jackie, all these guys had short lives, and a lot of us don't even realize it. Most of the young folks don't realize it. So there's no feeling that when people say, okay, I want to be a leader, but guess how they became those leaders? They became leaders by being in groups or in organizations. So whether it was the NAACP or the, you know, whatever it may be, people used to meet and talk. And then, you know, and yeah, everybody was individual. But once they started doing that, it would create a movement. And again, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I know, and I hate to keep calling her name because she's probably that, but I know Deanna was one of the first ones to realize this back in, I won't say that either, but right.
Black music associations.
Right.
And everybody was involved, the artists, the songwriters, the publicists, educators.
Politicians.
Yeah. The president should be part of
right.
Black Music Month. So we are missing that. And also the education part.
Right.
And a lot of young artists do not know what transpired before them.
Right.
And in some cases, more than they care. The knowledge is power. That those who have the knowledge will be the most powerful. And so we need to come together. Yeah, we have our differences and we have different ideas, but we need to come together on our commonalities rather than.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is beautiful.
No doubt.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much.
And to her point, if we do that, then people like Live Nation and AEG, they have to listen. Not to say we're not going to take any money from them. We're not really a threat to them. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be there. But at least they make a decision, and that's what the news a year ago with George Floyd, that's what that did. That brought everybody's attention back to we were now speaking out. Yeah. We were now crying out. But we were doing that as community. We were doing that as a group, and that's what got people's attention. And if we do that while we're sitting here, if we all do that, and we find our groups and our networks, and even in the city, like brotherly love, the city of Philadelphia, when I think about that and what you're talking about there, what that brought for the music industry, when the organization that even Deanna was involved with, Philadelphia International, which is celebrating 50 years this year of Amaze, they were the first ones to be connected to a major record label, which was CBS. People don't think about that, but why? Why did CBS go to them? Because they were controlling it. They had, when you talk about Harold Melvin, the Blue Notes, or Teddy Pendergrass, they were controlling the narrative of our community, so they couldn't help but somebody talk to them.
Oh, 100%, because anytime, this is why it's, independent talent, anytime that you already have the voice, you have the following, you've grown that, people want to talk to you because they want to be a part of how you can make money, how they can make money off of you. And I think what you're saying, and I think everybody's homework coming out of today, coming from the teaching spirit, everybody's homework coming out of today is in your own micro universe. How are you building community? Who are you talking to? Who are you talking with? You all have some purpose, some dream, some vision, some talent. Maybe you're the connector. Maybe you're the organizer. Maybe you're the logistics person. Maybe you're the whatever it is. Everybody's homework tonight is to figure out who am I standing next to? Who do I need to be connected to? How can we get our community together and to be more more together in ways that are impactful for where we're trying to go? And then soon you start to get these different communities together to be impactful at a larger scale. But it definitely starts with your micro universe and your micro world, and really coming together in that way. I know we're gonna wrap up because I know time is being called on us, but I would really love to let the people know here and streaming as well, if there's anything that you all are working on right now, what is that, and how can people find it or get involved? And if there's any way to contact you, IG, whatever you want to share with the people.
Well, I recently established the Bryceland Entertainment Endowment at my university, Bowie State University. So it's going to help students in majoring in fine and performing arts, business, and marketing. So if you ever feel like you want to have a tax deduction and you need to make a donation, give it to Bowie State University. But we're also going to be rolling out, I have a series called Crush Your Craft, where we basically just teach young people about the industry, and it's just a way of communicating to say, you can do it, I did it, I'm here, I'm accessible to you. And then I have a nonprofit called Project Hygiene that my twin sister and our birthday is actually tomorrow, Juneteenth, which is a federal holiday now. But we basically give back toiletry products to underprivileged children as a way to denounce bullying and come into different schools and do workshops and infuse music in it as well. So you can find us at projecthygiene.org or brycelandentertainment.com.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brandon?
We have a bunch of festivals. It's opening up the world, so we have a bunch of festivals coming in Live Nation. But outside of that, I launched a network, a streaming service called Apex, Artist Presented Experiences. And really that is, musicians, giving them unfiltered creative, whatever they want to do, whether that's scripted, unscripted, documentaries, We'll have some licensed content, but it's a new network launching in October. Watch apex.com.
Michael, what you up to?
A couple of things. Taking a page again. Hate to keep calling you out, but taking a page again from Deanna.
Y'all should know if you don't know who Deanna is, please do your Googles, because
Deanna Williams, yes,
Deanna Williams.
without a doubt, without a doubt. But about 4 years ago, I started an organization called the Black American Music Association. And with that, that's a 501c6 trade organization that is very much like the Country Music Association or even NARS, which is the Grammys. But again, I mentioned Deanna because she did it along with some other constituents. She did that. It was called the Black Music Association, and which was doing exactly what we're talking about now, galvanizing and bringing people of our community together. This is as an association we have, it's a trade organization. There is a membership that opens up, public open membership that opens up in October of this year. And again, this is one of the things, even though I've been working on it for 4 years, it takes that long to button up everything. So now our first public endeavor, we got involved a little bit with the politics by helping to put young folks working the polls when the year turned around, by showing our community, which most kids didn't even realize, that you get paid to work the polls. Because usually you see older people working the polls, but there's kids that work the polls this year in January, December, all of them, that end up going to college, buying cars and stuff from that. And believe it or not, you can earn that kind of money from doing that. So we really went out. We partnered up with like Universal Music Group and some others to create that initiative, along with some people on the ground. We did that. And then our second one, kind of in coalition to what's going on up here this month and here in Nashville. In Atlanta yesterday, we did our first inaugural induction for the Black Music and Entertainment Walk of Fame, which was quite amazing. But it's located right at anybody familiar with Atlanta, right at the corner of Northside and MLK Junior Drive. So we did that in association with Mercedes-Benz Stadium and the Georgia World Congress Center and the city of Atlanta. But the beauty of it is it changed the complexity of what we've been doing. So the Walk of Fame is not a Georgia Walk of Fame. It's not an Atlanta Walk of Fame. It is an international Walk of Fame. It just happened to be putting it in Atlanta. And, you know, the questions that I fielded yesterday was why Atlanta? Well, Atlanta right now it used to be D.C., may still be to some degree, but Atlanta really is the chocolate city right now in a real way. And we have to make sure that we continue to build that and grow that. So not so much about just claiming it, but we also right up the street from the AU Center, right there at the MLK where Martin Luther King's original home was. And our goal is to induct 24 to 36 people per year. So we have created a Walk of Fame similar to Hollywood. You got to come and see. And along with that Walk of Fame, we actually have a QR code system, which actually came up here 2 months ago or something like that, and talked to Henry and Dion them and shared and just looked at some of the technologies. So we incorporated a QR code so that you could educate yourself. So our first inductees this year, and a lot of their families, for those that couldn't be there, most of their families were there yesterday afternoon for a brunch. We inducted James Brown. We inducted Otis Redding. We inducted Quincy Jones. We inducted Stevie Wonder. We inducted Beyonce, Usher, Missy Elliott, Outkast, Kirk Franklin, Shirley Caesar. On the mogul side, in the entertainment side, we inducted Sean, used to be Diddy, but now it's Sean Love Combs. And then for our Legacy Award, we inducted Michael Jackson. So we put down 12. So the Jackson family was there. The Redding family was there. Everybody was pretty much represented. Missy was there. Outkast was there. It was quite a thing. But what was so moving was the fact that Missy, if you go online, you probably see it somewhere, to go on stage. And actually, your former mentor was right there. And she inducted Missy. But the thing that was so moving, Missy stood on stage. And when we talk about community, that's what she addressed. Of all the awards and everything she gets, to go outside and see her name. It's not a star. We call it the crown jewel of excellence. To go outside and see her name and plant it in the cement on MLK Junior Drive, along with all these other folks, and to know this will be here for decades to come, and moving forward, again, brought her to tears on stage. And she also said to know that it was her community that was recognizing her at that level, which is not what she normally gets. And to be sitting in the room with the daughters of James Brown or the family of Otis Redding or the folks I mentioned, she was almost like, well, I know I do my thing, but it's just hard for me to believe this little girl from Virginia did this. And I guess that's what this is all about to me. How do you bring that together? So we're doing that. So please check that out when you get a chance. And then the association, we're going to continue to work, and we're going to continue to network and bring different generations together. And hopefully everybody joins it, and we create a narrative that helps to address some of our inadequacies.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Please give this panel a hand. You guys, this has been excellent. Thank you so much for your expertise. Thank you so much for the giggles. I'm looking at you. And honestly, thank you so much for just y'all know each other? years. And thank you just for being honest and transparent and having radical candor related to this business, why we do what we do, and who's next. Not even who's next, but what needs to come next and what we need to remember as we go through this industry. And for those of you tuning in live, I really appreciate your attention. And for those of you here, thank you for being here and being present with us today. My name is Tiffany Hardin. Thank you, Michael.
Great job, Tiffany.
Thank you, Brandon. And we'll see you guys out there. And have a great time.